welcome back to the NWA 1984 project. I'm your host, Alex G, and with me, as always, is Matt Riley. How you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm still super.
Still super indeed. You're never not super.
Occasionally.
Occasionally not super.
When I have Taco Bell.
It's not good stuff, man.
Well, I think it's a necessary evil. Punish your body once a year. It's like vaccinating yourself against poisoned meat.
That's the way I like my meat, extra poison. So on this episode will be another closed-circuit event, this time from Tampa, Florida. Main event of this show will be Dusty Rhodes defending the national championship against Tully Blanchard. That's going to be a lot of fun. I did want to start out this episode talking about a couple of things, and after reading some of the comments that we've gotten recently that I wanted to address is the comment I get all the time, or the question I get all the time is like, why do we do it? Why do we do our videos this way versus, say, recreating a WrestleMania 7? Having the wrestlers, do exact recreation of WrestleMania 7 with the matches and the wrestlers who were involved in that show. And what I like to tell people is that what we do here is not trying to recreate history. It's about being inspired by history. So we're doing a little fantasy booking simulator here, a lot of what-if scenarios here, because, not for nothing, are you going to watch WrestleMania 7 in 2K18 graphics, or are you going to go on the WWE Network and watch WrestleMania 7?
Right.
So it's like, maybe if we were doing a watch-along, but, those are extremely difficult to do, especially when it comes to timing everything down. We would have to do segments for each match. So, it's not necessarily, worth it for something that, we can just talk about it and you guys can watch the wonderful gameplay of, Cheeky Star and Ron Star taking on the Fabulous Ones for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. That's interesting. So you kind of look at it as like, okay, this could have happened. This could have happened at that time, and we want to try to have graphics. And even if you look so deep as terms of the sponsorships in the arena, I use logos from that time frame. I use our intro video is also something that would be inspired by history, not necessarily trying to recreate it. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that, and that's why I don't do those types of videos. And everyone who watches our videos tends to enjoy them, so there's no necessarily reason to change them now. But we may at some point, but who knows?
Why don't we make a whole entire super fed of just jobbers?
Well, I'm waiting for the day that we get so popular that there's going to be someone that goes, well, actually, you said on episode 50 that you like this wrestler, and then on episode 75. You said you did not like this wrestler, so what is it? I'm waiting for us to get that level of stardom because that would make me extremely happy. We're not there yet, though, so maybe one day, who knows? So, guys, I really want to talk about second-generation stars, and we've seen kind of an explosion recently of second-generation stars that have come to prominence, whether it be Charlotte Flair. We see Tessa Blanchard out there. We see Brian Pillman Jr. out there. And I want to talk to Matt about some of the best and worst second, third generation wrestlers of all time. So Matt, who do you think, in your opinion? And I guess we have to not counting The Rock, right? Because I don't think The Rock necessarily. Everyone knows The Rock is the biggest superstar. The biggest second generation superstar of all time, right? He does movies, blah blah blah. So we want to take The Rock out of it because everyone knows about The Rock.
Okay.
So in terms of second generation, third generation stars, who do you think is the greatest second generation star of all time?
Not Ted DiBiase. I really rooted for him. Actually, he's third generation.
Yes.
But I rooted for him so hard, and he kept getting hurt. Ugh, it's mad.
Ted DiBiase Jr. and all his brothers wrestled too. So you had Brett DiBiase and you had Mike DiBiase, and they all wrestled. And I guess Ted being the biggest and I guess the most capable, eventually did make it to the WWE. But it seemed like injuries. It seemed like something. He had a good look about him. He was a good worker, but he never kind of just made it. He never made that leap. Well, not for nothing. Even Cody Rhodes didn't make that leap until he left the WWE. So
yeah, it's hard to say because I think. I'm trying to think of second generations.
Well, we'll go down a list of them. So in terms of second generation stars, some of the I guess the most prominent ones would be, Bob Orton Jr., right? and then Randy Orton, obviously, right? You have Dusty with Dustin and Cody. You have Ric Flair with Charlotte, Brian Pillman and Brian Pillman Jr. You have Stu Hart and all his sons, including Bret and Owen Hart. You have Gory Guerrero and the Guerrero family. So you have Hector, Mondo, Eddie, even Chavo Jr. You can throw in there as well. You know, you have Matt Bourne, Greg Gagne, George Goulas, Jeff Jarrett. He's in there. All the Samoan guys, so Roman Reigns, the Usos, Tama Tonga, you know, those guys are all in there. Let's see, who else? I mean, you got some guys who may not have made it, like a Kelly Kiniski or a Scott Putski, David Sammartino. No, so, you know, who do you think?
Well, I think right now, Charlotte's probably the most talented, if you will.
Yeah, I think she's the most complete.
I wish we stopped doing those moonsaults off the top rope to the floor.
Know.
Just come on, kid. You know, look what's going on around you. I would say, like, if you save that for, like, a WrestleMania, okay. But SmackDown on a random January, come on, man.
I do have a question about her. Why does she does that cartwheel on the outside as part of her entrance? It seems like weird. It seems very Bam Bam Bigelow-ish.
I think it's just a pre-match thing she probably just has always done. It's probably superstitious, if I had to guess. You know, like, I mean, you know, like some guys grab the ropes, test things, you know, whatever.
Right.
You know, but I think Charlotte, to me, is the most currently accomplished. You know, I mean, she's won multiple titles. She's excellent. She's getting better. I mean, there's still room to improve for her. Don't be wrong. I think Tessa Blanchard's getting up there, too. She's really doing...
I don't know why she's not signed yet. I don't know why she's not... You know, she could headline a WrestleMania with Charlotte Flair, and that story can be told. Because I think that's a great story. Like, sometimes some of the writers, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, some, like, they take the low-hanging fruit, but the good stuff, they're just like, we're just not going to do that. Like, why are you making it so hard? It's not hard. It's simple. It's very, very simple.
I would say, I think Barry Windham was one of my favorites as far as just he had a great career. Although I will say, I think his career kind of spanned, and then there was the haircut incident where he cut his hair short like Sting. And just, I don't know, it seems sort of after that WCW run in the early 90s.
Yeah.
After that, it kind of was just, nothing really major.
Barry was always weird because Barry, he seemed to be like kind of flaky. So he was about to get a big run, and then he'll just like take off.
Yeah.
Like, he was about to get a big run in Crockett in '84, and he's just like, I'm leaving to go to WWF. And then all of a sudden, like, he had his little run in WWF the first time. He's like, I'm going to go back to the Crockett. So, like, I'm going to leave WCW and go back to WWF and become the Widowmaker. Or I'm going to leave WCW and go back to WWF and be the Stalker. He's like, oh. But at the time he's a blackjack, you're like, you're fucked.
Yeah.
But, like, there's a 5-year period where Barry Windham was probably the best wrestler in the world.
Oh, he had some really fantastic. I mean, one of the matches that made me want to get into wrestling myself was Barry Windham, Ric Flair. It was on it was like a Saturday, like one of those 1-hour shows, but they clipped the match down. It was him, Flair. It was a 1-hour match, but of course, didn't whatever.
It's the one where he's wearing the blue trunks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a fantastic match. Well, I think as second generation guys, Cody's one of those guys who's still going on the way up. I feel.
He's definitely ascending. I'm not sure if he had that. The two things that he hasn't had yet is that rival. Like, he needs his Ric Flair. He needs his Kevin Sullivan. He needs that rival. And I don't think he's had that match yet. When you think Cody Rhodes, you think of this match. Like, you think of Ricky Steamboat, you think of Steamboat and Savage or Steamboat and Flair. Like, those matches. He hasn't had that match yet. And I think I'm fairly confident that he will. But he's not there yet.
Yeah, I agree that for Cody, and I know there's a rumor that he's going to have some kind of major opponent at the first show. So, I mean, who knows? But I think that it's like anything. Like, look at Kenny Omega. They had a good feud for what it was, but that wasn't like a career-defining feud.
Yeah.
And I think I was trying to think of the day, like, okay, well, who would be someone? Because he says someone who betrayed him or like left him, and I was thinking, sake of argument, let's say I'm trying to think someone who would be in his past besides Teddy DiBiase that would, be someone abandon him, or Randy Orton maybe. I don't know.
I don't see Randy Orton never leaving the WWE. I think he's a WWE guy, and
yeah,
he's gonna be like the Dolph Ziggler. He's like, I'm never leaving. They can fucking shit on me all they want. I'm never gonna fucking go anywhere.
Yeah,
like maybe Dustin gets a release, maybe, because I think having Dustin versus Cody at a main event, and Dustin can still go. I mean, we're talking about just second generation guys.
Yeah.
When they called him the Natural, he was the fucking Natural. Like, he was good real fucking quick. Like, about 2 years in, he's really, really good. He's never had necessarily that 5-star match. He's never been the top guy of the company. So, like, he's never exceeded his father. But in terms of bell-to-bell workers, he's fucking phenomenal. And it's almost a shame that he got, in a way, that Goldust's character defined his career and made him a big star. But I also think it's hurt him in the long run, again, that, like, oh, we're going to put the belt on him. Because how can you put the world title on Goldust? You know what I mean? That character was never necessarily built to be that top level star like. So maybe it could be Goldust. It could be 1,000 different guys. It could be fucking the Black Scorpion for all we know. Imagine they bring that back. Young Bucks would do it.
Yeah, I think what's good is that you have some really good second generation stars out there.
That Pillman kid is going to be somebody.
Who?
Brian Pillman Jr. He's going to be somebody.
Yeah. I keep thinking Teddy Hart too, but Teddy Hart's just such a. He's such
a loose cannon, and he's older now.
Yeah.
But he's such a loose cannon. But that fucking Harry Smith is the real deal, though.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is a lot of these guys. The thing about, like, they grew up with either a father in the industry or a father who died in the industry, and kind of, growing up in the business. Pillman died early.
Yeah.
And, Owen, all these guys that died young. Eddie Guerrero. I keep thinking, like, Eddie Guerrero's daughter was wrestling at one point.
Yeah, she's married to Aiden English as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, good for Aiden.
But I think she's doing ring announcing, and she might be doing some managing right now elsewhere. But, to that point, you have a Natty Neidhart out there as well. And something like Teddy Hart and Harry Smith and TJ Wilson were having matches on WWF shows in Canada at 11 years old. I don't know if people know that. I don't know if that's common knowledge that, on a lot of these shows in Canada, they would bring these kids in the ring and let them go. And they would have, like, these lucha-style matches, like, when they're, like, 11. Like, Teddy Hart got signed to a developmental deal, like, at 17. But he's just fucking Looney Tunes that every time he got an opportunity, he fucking flushed down the toilet. But he seems to be in a good place now, and his matches are always fucking phenomenal. He does some crazy shit, and he was away for a long time. He was a drug dealing pimp for a while, and came back to wrestling. So do yourself a favor, go out of your way to watch a Teddy Hart shoot interview, because they're fucking nuts. Speaking of second generation, I mean, you got Brett and you have Owen. I know you're not big on Brett, but in terms of having good matches for an extended period of time, Hall of Fame career, WWF champion, he's definitely someone that you would put up there pretty close to the top. And Owen, in terms of, match quad, I mean, when he blew out his knee, he wasn't having those matches like he did with Liger earlier in his career that were fucking off the charts. But, Owen was fucking phenomenal. And it's a shame. First and foremost, it's a shame what happened to him. It's very sad. And from a selfish wrestling fan point of view, it was like, in that early 2000s, Owen could have been the guy to transition from that era to the next. Because you will have good matches with all these guys. Like, we never got that Owen Hart and Eddie Guerrero match, or we never got that Owen Hart versus Brock Lesnar match, or, even Owen Hart versus Triple H when Triple H was, at the top. We never got those matches. And every time I hear Stone Cold Steve Austin talk about Owen Hart, I can hear, like, just a bitterness in his voice about it, because I think in a lot of ways is that he blames Owen for his career being cut short. And he still holds that against him. Although everyone in the world loves Owen, and he doesn't really say anything bad about Owen, but you can hear it in his voice. He has a resentment for that. And not for nothing, Steve, if you watch your own matches back, you know that's one of your spots because you've done that spots before with fucking Shono. And you did that same exact spot with Steamboat.
Yeah.
So you call that fucking spot, buddy.
I think again, it goes back to my thing about saving spots for big occasions and making sure you're aware of them. Like, I think it's just a thing that, we watched the video earlier, the guy going on the top rope and or top of that cage, and how crazy that spot was. But I always think, a lot of these guys that get injured, like we just had Tommaso Ciampa last night, he needs to have neck surgery out for another year, and people are like, oh, he's fragile, whatever. Like, the guy had an injury, but he came back strong. And what tells me he's solid is his mic work, his persona, his timing. If he came back and he was, even if he was manager or whatever, his timing's amazing. He gets it, and he's one of those guys. Like, it was funny. I remember watching the PWG shows, and now it's so funny to see like so many of those guys are like either main eventers.
All of those guys.
Yeah.
Like the entire roster.
And it's a great thing to see because it shows you that, you can work at it.
I remember when Ciampa was in the fucking embassy with Prince Nana on Ring of Honor. And he was like, he was very low on the totem pole back then.
And I always feel that a lot of ways, especially in life in general, if you're good at something and you stick at it and keep at it, eventually you'll break through.
I'm just hoping that Vince doesn't put the stigma on him that, he's fucking injury prone.
I would say, honestly, with Vince, I think once this whole
XFL
gets going, he's going to be out of the picture.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping. They're bringing in a bunch of guys in, to creative and more producers. They brought in your Jeff Jarrett's and now Jason Jordan and Bruce Pritchard's back, and they hired the person who's going to save professional wrestling in terms of her writing ability. Talking about Dana Warrior.
Oh yeah,
part of creative. So, so I can see him setting himself up to maybe pay more attention to the XFL. Maybe that's one of the things he feels like, I didn't pay attention to it enough last time, and that's why it failed, type thing. Because it took me, for what he does on a daily basis, the guy already works fucking 20 hours a fucking day. You know what I mean? Like, he's a workaholic. He's on a different level. And that's one of the things I do admire about Vince is his work ethic. It's just insane. Like, yes, he doesn't go on vacation. Yes, he's a lunatic. But, he did what he had to do to be successful. And, he made those sacrifices and shit. Like, he's the type of guy that gets angry at himself for sneezing because he couldn't control it. Yeah. He's just on a different fucking level. And I just hope that, Ciampa, some of these other guys don't get a stigma like, these guys always fucking hurt, so we're just going to go with Randy Orton. Because I can rely on Randy.
I think right now we're looking at the transitions coming. And what I will say with this, as far as WWE's botching of the call-ups, because you had like a month and a half or whatever it was, 2 months of the 6 people, EC3 and Lacey and, Heavy Machinery and, look at these people, they're coming to WWE. And then a month and a half later, you just have, hey, look, it's Ricochet and Aleister Black.
I think there's a stat out there that Lacey's only had 1 match on television since she's been called up. Yeah. And EC3 only had like 3 or some shit. Like, it's really, really, really low.
Yeah, and again, when they show them, it's like, hey, EC3, we're going to have you stand by a mirror. Like, man.
Like, I would have, not for nothing, and I know, there's people that like Impact Wrestling and TNA. It's like, not for nothing, I probably would have brought in Dixie to manage him. Just to set him apart. Because number one, it would have been a big deal to bring her in. As his aunt. Because that was because his name is Ethan Carter III. He's Dixie's in the storyline. He's Dixie Carter's nephew, so it's like that would be something that's interesting instead of having him do what he's doing now.
I was a fan of his work way back when he first did the whole EC3 gimmick. I was like, all right, let's see what happens here, and it was working. It was great. He did a good job with it. Fantastic mic work. But to me, it's like you have this guy who's phenomenal on the mic. He's great at ad-lib and improv. And you have him in the back hallway posing. Like,
the roster is bloated because you even got like a guy like Drew McIntyre. It's like, what are you doing with him?
Well, that's the thing. It's part of it's the roster's bloated, but you also have this problem where it's like, well, you have guys in the roster like Randy Orton, Dolph Ziggler, Big Show to agree, Sheamus, You know, like there's
Curtis Axel,
like Kurt Hawkins, like Zack
R-Truth.
Ryder. Yeah, we can keep going. There are guys that should have phased out, but they've got this thing with like, well, we got to get all the competition we can. You're not doing anything with it. You're doing nothing with it, and just simply saying, well, we have a 3-hour program, and what they've got to realize is when SmackDown goes to Friday nights and it goes down to Fox, they're going to have ratings expected. And I know in a certain way, wrestling is like a home run because they get automatic ratings that are way higher than other things, so it puts them in the top 10.
Because you got to watch wrestling live for the most part.
Right, but
I had this argument with Rip Rogers, and it was talking about what can be done to fix WWE in terms of Raw and SmackDown. I'm like, the shows are too long. And he called me an idiot. And it's like, well, they just got $100 million. I'm like, yeah, but that comes with the caveat that, there's an out clause in that contract saying if you don't deliver such and such ratings, we're going to fucking cancel you.
right. I think the problem you have here is twofold. One, you have a lot of stars, and honestly, for the stars you have too much limited space when it comes to it. Like, look at NXT. NXT is a really well done program because it's packaged and it's just set up in a way that is easy to adjust. It moves along quickly. The pay-per-views are like 5 matches. They build up to them. They're not all the time. If you wanted to break the mold, so to speak, and go 3 wide and have your Raw, SmackDown, and then some other show, you could go directions with it. But I think right now one of the problems you have is that, like the other night I was watching Raw, and online the news broke about Asuka's injury and that she took a bad bump. And I was like, oh man. And she came out and attacked Mandy Rose on Tuesday night. So
yeah, she came on Twitter and said she was fine.
Right. So she said she was fine. And that's right. It's lucky. That's good. But I was thinking to myself, if you did a program that covered the road matches, because you have the crews, you have the men anyway, they're out there anyways, you could have a different feel. They could do more with the shows. Because right now, one of the biggest problems I have, for example, like a Monday Night Raw, is you go, okay, we're going to have a 20-minute segment setting up our main event in 2 hours. So that is essentially an hour dedicated to one match. And you build around, and you go to, like, during the show, you go back to them and have more talk about it. But the thing is, the matches don't really mean anything. Like, right now, they're being used purely to set up for the pay-per-view and the next show. But a lot of the matches have no weight to them. So there's no impression. Like, if you watch UFC and you know the winner of this match becomes the number 1 contender, you know both guys have something to fight for. And they could do that easily and have a match where they go, the match right now, they're going to get a shot next Monday night at the championship, whatever. Well, that match means something now. Instead, we get these ridiculous matches that don't mean anything, or they come out and you interrupt my music session, so I'm going to challenge you to a match. Fans they don't care about that. It's just they haven't figured it out. And what I am hoping happens is when AEW gets rolling, and they will, they're going to set a tone that has nothing to do with, we're not trying to be that show. They're just going to set their show up. And that should be better for everybody, because when people start raving about that show, and there'll be detractors, don't get me wrong.
Well, there already is. And they basically didn't have a show yet.
Right, but when they come out and say, hey, this is going to be our own show and our version, you know what? It'll stand out more.
Like, there's so much things that the WWE can do right now, and we always take a look back at the history. I mean, I think a primetime style show would help them out. I think bringing back like the house shows like they used to have on Nessun or on MSG from back in the day, I think that would help in terms of content.
Mm-hmm.
And with the women being so hot right now too, you have to at least consider giving them their own show, like a 1-hour women's show. Like, you still have them on Raw, maybe a little bit less on Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah.
But if you want to really build their stories, like you would have to like, you have fucking Main Event. Like, you still have these shows that you sell to other countries that no one gives a fuck about.
Yeah.
superstars main event, whatever the fuck they call it. It's like, why can't we just like we're doing it with 205, and obviously the 205 guys come up every once in a while for Raw. And I'm not saying not to have your Beckys and your Rondas and your Charlottes and your Sashas and your Baileys on these main shows. Of course, you're going to have those, have them on those main shows, right? That goes without saying. But why not give them more time to get over some of the other women, like your Riot Squads and your Shayna Baszlers and your Mandy Roses and and let them work. Let them work. I want to see them wrestle, for Christ's sakes. I think that would go a long way. And they're always looking for more content. I mean, they want original content. They don't want to rely on WrestleMania 3.
I think one of the things you have here is you have the chance for AEW to become a rival without having to have the Monday Night War, so to speak. Without having to have the same.
No one's going to go head to head anymore. That ship is fucking sailed.
Well, I think the content section makes the change too, because you can say, we expect to have a show on such and such a date, and they'll build up to it. And if they end up getting a full-time channel, that's another story altogether. Because it could be by the time they roll around, the billionaire guy might say, "Fuck it, I want to go head to head with Vince. I want to be TNT." Monday night or TBS, and if they sold off on it, whatever how it may worked out, they could do a show for 2 hours and kick their ass on ratings, because the WWE has become a victim of its own success, and that they don't understand what they have to do sometimes. And it's sad, because you watch and go, there are so many guys in there that could do more.
Like, you're hopeful, like you look like, oh, this could be awesome, and then you're like, oh wait, no,
right.
It's like, oh, this can be, like, they get you excited, and like, oh, this is awesome. And it's like, oh, no, wait, they fucked it up. Like, they go, like, A, B, C, and then they go to fucking Y, and then they fuck it up. It's like, speaking of weird things that I feel that they fucked up, recently on Twitter, they had that video with Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, whoops.
And that's like, I know there's a segment of the population, the segment of fans, like, oh wow, that's edgy and that's cool, and it's not PG because she cursed in it. Okay, I can see when you grew up watching wrestling and it was 1998. I get that, right? I understand that, right? I think we all understand that. But let's take a look back at history here for a moment. Now, essentially, what she said here is that she's the baddest fighter in the world. I'm just going to surmise it. But essentially, what she's saying is like, I'm real, WWE's fake, fuck the fans, fuck their women wrestlers. In a real fight, I beat the shit out of all of them. Who does that get over?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't help their women performers. It doesn't help Ronda Rousey at all. It doesn't help the WWE at all. It doesn't help anyone. And if you look back at history, when is these quote unquote work shoots? When have they ever worked?
When it was Ted the Wrestling Bear.
Ted the Wrestling Bear, possibly. But these work shoots, it comes across very WCW 2000. And I often reference WCW 2000 because it's literally the worst wrestling I've ever seen. That and XPW. Because they would do crazy shit. Man, I don't know if you were watching at this time, but they would use phrases, like behind the scenes phrases all the time. They'd be like, oh, this is going to get me over. Or like, hey, Booker, what's my gimmick? That kind of shit, right? That level of like, your average wrestling fan's not going to know what the fuck they're talking about, and whoever is necessarily smart has no idea what the fuck, like, what are you doing? It's like this. This is a way, like, we all learned these terms from reading newsletters and watching shoot interviews and that kind of stuff. But there's going to be a large segment of the population that learned all these terms watching WCW 2000. And the reality of the situation is, it's like learning about the birds and the bees when you learn about sex, right? Do you want to have that conversation with your parents, or do you want to learn about sex by watching Japanese tentacle porn? Because that's essentially what WCW was, Japanese tentacle porn.
Well, speaking of Japanese tentacle porn, Jushin Thunder Liger's announced his retirement.
He did. I have an affinity for Liger. I think we all do. I never heard anyone say like, "Oh, fuck Liger." Like, Liger is fucking amazing. And he's been wrestling for so long since the mid '80s.
Right.
And I think one of the things that kept him is the fact that he's in a full bodysuit with a mask. At his age.
Yeah.
I met him and he was fucking phenomenal. And he's funny and he's irreverent, and he's probably up until recently, he's probably this. Can we say that he was the third most well-known Japanese wrestler to American audiences? Like first being Inoki, Muda, and Liger, right?
Oh yeah.
By far, and then there's everybody else.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
They made some people in the Midwest that like, oh, Masa Saito, but
right.
Who was watching AWA back then? But the reality of the situation is that Liger announces retirement, and it's a year out. He's going to retire in 2020. So he's going to have his farewell tour, which that's going to be a hot ticket, wherever. Hope he comes back to the States. Hope he has a couple matches in the States. Nick Aldis already challenged him and said, "Hey, you want to come and challenge for the NWA World Title, which would be amazing."
Right.
And they can tell that story with the 10-pound of gold series. And Liger, for those of you who don't know, he's based on a comic book, manga being a Japanese comic book, anime fucking character, much like Tiger Mask. He was very much a Tiger Mask kind of replacement.
Yeah.
Tiger Mask being an anime manga as well. And he just took it to a whole nother level. And I love, heel Liger is fucking awesome too. You guys watch some heel Liger work. Like, there's some matches with Liger and fucking Buddha in like the mid '90s that are fucking off the fucking charts.
54 years old.
Yeah. Like, he had amazing matches with Samoa Joe in Ring of Honor. He has amazing matches with Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan in Ring of Honor. He had those amazing matches with Brian Pillman in WCW, and then obviously all the great matches he had in Japan would be for the J Cup and what have you, and it's just he's such an amazing competitor, and I'm sad to see him go, but I'm going to celebrate this year with him. I feel what I mean. Like, let's all celebrate.
Here is the question. Does he pass the gimmick on?
I mean, he could, technically, because obviously there's been other Tiger Masks. I think we're at number 5 right now, if you count Tiger Mask W. But, who knows? I think New Japan, in the way they're going, I think they're trying to get they haven't used those a lot. So there's been Tiger Mask, there's been Liger, and, if you want to count Muda, but Muda wasn't always Muda in Japan. I think a lot of people don't understand that, is that Muda in Japan was like Finn Balor here in the United States, that he would only break out the great Muda.
Right.
Like, if it was the end of a feud or he was a heel or something. But for the most part, he wrestled at Keiji most of the time. So it's, again, I always feel that no one talks about that. Like, I think Finn Balor is a paying tribute to Muda here when he's a demon character. But
yeah,
I think we're going to see a lot more Westerners in New Japan. I think we're going to see a lot more possibly ex-WWE guys, if they leave, if they don't end up going to AEW, or they can go to AEW and then in between they go to Japan. But I think we're going to see a lot more Westerners out there in Japan because they're trying to branch out globally. And I think right now they feel having, Westerners on top is good for their brand. Hence, it's one of the reasons. Jay White is a good wrestler and I like him, but I think he's the reason why. That's the reason why he has the belt, much like the reason why Omega had the belt prior to that. I think they really wanted to build with Omega, but Omega decided to leave, which is weird because, like, Omega, when it comes to Omega, like, he lives in Japan.
Yeah.
So that was always different about him leaving. But I think he's leaving to come back because I think he feels he's getting stale. He's like, I don't think I can top those matches I had over there. So.
Right.
But I think Liger should go on the massive world tour. Like, I don't know if he's going to be at the MSG show. I hope so. I'd be real happy to see him again. I saw him in NXT when he had that one shot in NXT. They brought him into NXT Brooklyn against Prince Pretty. What's his name? Fashion Police guy, not Fandango.
I said Febreze.
Not Fandango. The other
Tyler
guy.
Breeze.
Tyler Breeze, yes. And Tyler Breeze is another guy that, like, oh, fuck, like, you fucked him up because he was amazing at NXT, and now he's not nothing. He's a mid-card comedy gimmick. Yeah, I mean Liger. I still have my. That's one of my prized possessions. Is the only WWE Liger shirt they ever made, which I have and I wear all the time. But I got Liger's autograph. I have a picture of me and Liger. He's so incredible, and I'm glad he's able to kind of go out in his terms and he doesn't end up like a fucking Masawa, dying in the ring, or even a Hayabusa who was paralyzed, although he was paralyzed younger in his career. But I'm sure we're gonna see him in like one of those goofy fucking New Japan brawls that they have on the pre-shows every once in a while.
Yeah,
they'll come out for those and do those. Or we see like, oh, it's Scott Norton and Great Kabuki.
Right. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Liger and his career?
Oh,
especially his career in the States.
I enjoyed his work. I always was a fan. I remember the series he had with Pillman.
Oh yeah.
Good stuff. And he's just one of those guys like really like Rey Mysterio. Like you appreciate him more and more as you go along. But I think humor is what I always liked about Liger. So I'm happy that he's kind of go out in his terms. I think it'll be a good time, a good tour. It makes things be a bigger draw, and that'll be a special match. I don't know who will find his final match against, but that'll be cool.
I wonder who should it be against. I mean, I would say if he was still alive, it should be against Owen because they made each other, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of anyone else, I mean, do you want to put over a young guy here? Do you want to have a Legends match here? Do you want to put him back in the ring with Muda? Is Great Sasuke around doing stuff? Like, like who would you put him on in terms of the New Japan roster? Or do you do you give him a run with the belt? Because if you're trying to branch out and hit the Western audience, a Muda run, a Liger run, because he's well known in the States, could help that endeavor as well. So. Who knows? Maybe he gets someone with the NWA World Championship, or maybe he goes on to Mexico and has more matches has matches in AAA, or maybe he comes to an AEW show on his retirement tour.
Yeah.
What about this? Liger, Pillman Jr. Like that gives me chills. I have chills just even thinking about that. We go back to the beginning. We go back to the start here. And I think that would, that'd make a lot of fans happy. I think, we'll see what happens. See who he wrestles on his tour. I mean, we got about a year or so out.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Liger, for the memories, and I'm glad he's able to go out on his terms here. Speaking of going out, recently we had the deaths of more wrestlers. It's just like I hate to even talk about that. To a certain degree, because it's every fucking show that someone dies,
Right.
But recently we had the deaths of King Kong Bundy. Now we already had a big segment on King Kong Bundy already.
Yeah.
So go back and check that out. But we just lost Dick Beyer.
Yeah.
And he's he was like 80, 90 years old or whatever.
But if you watch the match, him and Ricky Diesel.
Ricky Dozan.
Him too. From I think it's like 63 or 62.
Yeah.
And it's like a 30-minute match, but it's really well mic'd. And there's a spot about I think 5 or 7 minutes in where it's like the traditional you're throwing your shoulder into the corner and hitting the guy in the stomach.
Yeah.
And he does that once to him, does it twice. He rears back for a third, and Ricky slides down out of the way. And he slams his shoulder and he drops down and he's selling how hard it is. And then he's Ricky reaches for me and he's time out. And he just does this great comedy part of it, but also he's so loud. And I always, Perry Saturn, who was the guy that really kind of coached me when I was first starting, was always a really loud guy. I don't know if you noticed it, when he made the big time, but when he was always so loud. And it was a great way to get the crowd involved. And I know it was a Japanese crowd, but they were really into it.
Yeah. Dick Beyer is one of the godfathers of Japanese professional wrestling. And he is revered over there. Like every time I play a Japanese wrestling video game, he's like one of the legends who's always in the games. Like it's him, Terry Funk, Stan Hansen, and Bruce Brody, Ricky Dozan, and Noki Baba. That's how it goes.
Right.
And sometimes Mil Maskers.
Nice.
You know, his big thing in Japan was that he had a feud with Mil Masters he had a best of 7 series match with. So, go check those out because what's funny about watching old Japanese footage is how meticulously great they look in HD. Like they use some really phenomenal fucking camera work over there, and their technology was even back then far superior to ours. And the Destroyer in general is just like this. An amazing worker, had a great career, a great life. He debuted in 1954 and he retired in 1993. So he's been around for a long time. Former all Asian tag team champions with his good friend Billy Red Lyons out of Canada. Former AWA world champion. I think that's that has to be talked about. I think overall, Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2005 and 2003. Just one of the all-time greats, and basically when he retired, he became a gym teacher, in Akron, New York. He coached football, wrestling, and swimming, and he would go. He was on the board of directors of the College Valley Alley Club, and he would go there, every year. And we see all the pictures that have come out, and just one of the the all-time greats, and it's sad to see him go, but he made it. To 88, which is going to be a lot longer than most of us, I think. So,
yeah, it's pretty good, especially for wrestlers, considering how beat up the bodies get.
He was part of the. He won the Order of the Rising Sun, which is like one of their big awards over in Japan, like in terms of the government. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like he's that much of a big deal over there. So. So Godspeed, the Destroyer, Dick Beyer, Dr. X, and Bundy too. When we talked about Bundy, and this is the monster heel he was at the time. Obviously everyone's gonna go back and talk about WrestleMania 2 with Hogan, but it's something like some of the weird stuff that he was involved in. Like he did advertisement for like computers.
Yeah.
He was on Married with Children a lot. The Bundy, right? And he's named after King Kong Bundy. Al Bundy is named after King Kong Bundy, and the Rhodes being the neighbors is named after Dusty Rhodes because the writers of Marriage with Children were big wrestling fans. That's why you had the Bundys and the Rhodes, and King Kong Bundy was like every time I see him, he seems someone that's fucking hilarious. Like every time I see him in an interview because he's so like blunt, Jersey guy. He's like that guy fucking sucks. He's just like, but you kind of give him a pass. He's like, because it's fucking Bundy. We love him, So he was like, fuck Honky Tonk Man. He's a piece of shit. He meant it too. So
yeah.
But King Kong Bundy, it's sad too because he was going to be at WrestleCon this year. Like he tweeted like 3 hours before he passed. He's going to be at the big event. He was doing autograph signings in the area, and he's one of the guys on my list that I want to check off to meet, get a picture with. Selfishly, I'm not going to get that opportunity, unfortunately. Condolences out to their families and what have you. But again, wrestling fans are selfish.
Oh yeah.
I'm the person who got mad at Chris Benoit for ruining my WrestleMania moment of him winning the championship because he murdered his family.
Yeah, thanks.
And like. But that's the thing about fandom. It's like I understand, the guy killed his family or whatever, but and I understand like the mourning process and stuff like that. But it's always like deep down, I'm still a douchey wrestling fan. So like it's just part of the deal, I guess. I don't know. Being a douchey wrestling fan, I see so many of them on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
It's so weird to me though. Like we have, and I often lament about social media in general, and how kind of the old school message board mentality has spilled over to social media, like in public. So a lot of the shit that we see now that we used to see back in the day would be the late 90s, early 2000s. and all these message boards, depending on what it was, it didn't matter what it was. If it was sports, movies, entertainment, or professional wrestling. So we used to see the trolls and people being dickheads to each other, but seeing that like kind of out in public, it's like this. It's I hate to use it because it's a false equivalency thing, but I think the comparison is justified. It's like someone that beats their wife in their home, like, and you know it, but you never see it, so you kind of like, whatever. And then one day, like, you're out food shopping, the guy fucking slaps his wife in the middle of the fucking supermarket, and you're like, oh shit. And that's what it kind of feels like when you see some of these people trolling, like, people in public like this, and acting a fool in public, or pretending to be someone else in public. It's like,
I have a theory about it, and I think what it is it goes back to people who think it's fun to be the cool bad guy, to be the one making the crazy comment and like being like, ooh, edgy. And there's a friend of mine who posts things, and he has one guy who posts a lot to his stuff, and he posts the most inane, stupid like response, like
how I got you mad, ha 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 ha.
Right. And I wait till he shows up and posts, and then I post below him and go, no one cares. You're not relevant. You're not clever. You're just boring. You're boring because you have nothing fresh to offer. And a lot of it's just and what you have to do is ignore these people. And what I found works really well on Twitter, it really works well, because I've been doing this and it's starting to work. I don't block people, but I report them as either harassing somebody else if they're doing it, because that's what it is, or that they're possibly a person at risk for self-harm, because it's like, there was a guy who was posting these things about how he was in danger, and he's a person with mental problems, that I could see someone like him taking his own life and trying to pin it on somebody else.
That's one of the things you don't see either, is that there's some people out there on social media that may have legitimate mental illnesses, but you can't really tell through posts and through tweets that, like, oh, this guy. So you're arguing with someone that maybe have a mental deficiency of some sort, and
right?
You're getting all upset, and you're arguing with the guy that probably is not going to get it, because you're not having a verbal conversation with them, so you can't tell. Or if they're like a 14-year-old boy, and you know how I was a douche at 14, and when I was 14 years old, I was a dick too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Thank God they didn't have Twitter back then, because people would be screenshotting my fucking tweets if I was 14. For fuck's sake, you know what I mean? But
right.
That's the thing I gotta tell my kids is like, yo, like you can't do that, because that shit's gonna come back and haunt you. We've seen it especially with draft picks. They're either going to NFL, MLB, or like those tweets coming back to fucking hurt them. So it's like, I gotta warn my kids about what you post on social media, because they'll come back, and when you're 30 and you're going out for a high profile gig, or you're a professional, a doctor, lawyer, what have you, that shit's gonna come back and fucking haunt you. Right. But I was an obnoxious kid too at one point. So you don't know who you're talking to. So you don't know if they're an obnoxious kid. You don't know if they have some sort of mental illness or a mental deficiency of some sort, or there's someone who gets their jollies by just pissing people off.
Right, and that's the thing.
People exist.
People, as times change, I think one of the ways you get around it is you make it so that if you have an online profile, social media, it's linked to your profile. There's no anonymous identity. And
here's the thing too is, like, a lot of people, oh, I just got out of Twitter jail. I'm like, what did you say to get put in Twitter jail?
Yeah.
Like, what do you, like, I got out of Facebook jail.
Yeah, I have a friend.
What are you saying? Like, what are you doing?
The most common thing I find is people post memes about something with nudity in it, or like I have a friend of mine, she's a comedian, and she has a website called All Men Suck.
Yeah.
Or I think it changed the name, but basically she's like comedian, but she's making the point that like almost all the problems in a society are caused by men. Part comedy, part like. But
how do you getting put in Twitter jail when you're talking about wrestling though?
Oh, that I don't know.
What are you doing?
Unless someone's like, Triple H is Hitler. What? It's like
what are you guys doing? And I'll see and then you have the quote unquote the stands, right? We've seen this come up as of late. The whole stands. The stand. The phrase "stand" comes from. Remember the Eminem song "Stand," where he had the obsessed fan.
No, I didn't like Eminem.
Okay, so Eminem had this song where he's rapping and he's talking about an obsessed fan, and they go back and forth, whatever, right? And this guy's name was Stan. The song was called Stan.
Okay.
So what we have now is people who are fans of somebody. Like I'm a Becky Lynch stan. Like I'm obsessed with Becky Lynch, and I only post stuff about Becky Lynch, and I hate Charlotte, and I hate all the other women's, but I love Becky. And you have these for everyone, right? So you have Roman Reigns, you have blah blah blah. Right? Everyone across the board has their stands, right? They're back in the day, you used to have fan clubs, right? But now they're obsessed, and they will. I only like my wrestler. Why is my wrestler not have the belt? Why is my wrestler not on top? And blah 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 blah, right? Without being, the overall, nature of professional wrestling or the federation or the business in general. But you're having a lot of these people that are quote unquote stands, and it's weird. And I usually don't follow those people. I usually look at their profiles, and because they like to mention that in their profile. A couple of things I don't follow. Number one, if you're bragging about being blocked by a particular person, like, oh, fucking John Cena blocked me, I'm not going to follow you because I'm pretty sure you're a dick. And if you claim to be someone's stan, probably not going to follow you because I think that's uninteresting. You're just going to be posting about one person over and over again, and you're going to spam my timeline with pictures of Sasha Banks. I'm like, no, Sasha's okay. But it's like, no, I just don't want to see. And then you have the people who do the WWE porn stuff, who like just it's Alexa Bliss's butt. It's pictures of Alexa Bliss's butt. And I'm like, I'm not going to follow you either.
And again, I think if people didn't have the anonymity, I think that would make it.
I agree. It's just like, hey, don't keep. And if you just post like new pictures all the time, I'm like, I'm not going to follow you, dude. It's weird. And, everyone likes adult entertainment and what have you, but, I think there's certain platforms, and I'm just like, scrolling on my phone, and my daughter looks over my shoulder, and she sees, stuff that she's not supposed to be seeing. That's a problem.
Right.
I mean, so it's like, no, I'm not following you either. But yeah, people on Twitter, and then you have they have your factions, right? I call them faction warfare. You have your old school wrestling fans who hate everything that's new, right? Everything, good, bad, or indifferent. They hate it all. If it's not Memphis, they don't like it. If it's not Georgia, they don't like it. Okay, they go in one camp. They do shit on everything, right? Then you have some of the new school wrestling fans who, if it takes place, prior to 1998, it doesn't fucking exist. Fuck it. So you have that camp. Then you have your pro WWE people, and then your pro AEW people, and they argue back and forth and they yell at each other. You have your Vince Russo army, which is weird, but it's okay. And then you have your Cornette people, and they argue back and forth. Right? You see all these fucking echo chambers and camps, and no one can have a reasonable discussion, and no one, there's people who just go out of their way just to fucking attack, anyone that's involved in quote unquote wrestling media, would it be like Meltzer, Alvarez, Keller, any of those guys, especially Dave. Dave probably gets the worst, but Dave is also, people forget about Dave. Uncle Dave is like the original fucking old school Smart Mark fan. He's been doing this since the early 80s.
Yeah.
So, like, if you want to get in a war with words with Dave Meltzer, it's probably not going to end well for you. You know what I mean? Because it's Dave, and he's deep down, he's just like us. He's just another snarky fucking wrestling fan as well as being a journalist. So, I think people forget that. So when he fucking claps people back, people are like, "Whoa!" It's like, yo, he's a wrestling fan too. People forget that. And when people look at his his rating systems, and the rating systems are just to tell you, hey, listen, this is a 4-star match, go check it out. Or this is a dud, there's no reason for you to watch it. It's just a guide. It doesn't mean anything. He said that. It's like, it doesn't mean anything. Anything over like a 3-star match, is something that I think you should check out. Anything that's a 0 or a 1, it's like, you can probably skip it. But if you still watch it if you want to. Everyone knows that Dave's always had a preference for Japanese wrestling. Even the way he phrases certain things, like he'll say such and such is the best angle in North America, or this such and such is the best wrestler in North America, which is, the way he phrases things. But he's always been someone who has a preference towards Japanese wrestling and prefers it on a certain level. And this is not any different than the shit he was saying in 1984. Like, it's not any different. There's the websites who just like will take 2 lines out of something he said and post it as news. Like, there's a whole industry of news websites that just take the Observer and just copies and pastes parts of the Observer and makes it news, which is weird to me. But
yeah,
what are you gonna do? Well, Dave Meltzer reporting such and such, and I was like, and he doesn't necessarily like if you read the Observer, he gives his opinion, but it's always stated as such. And if something, oh yeah, he's trying.
oh yeah. I wanted to come out eventually. You're doing the show from a boxcar.
And if something's a rumor, like, oh, this such and such rumor, or they're rumored to have this, he says it as a rumor. He doesn't state most things as like, oh, this is going to be the main event of WrestleMania. Because he doesn't know. Someone told him that this is what they're thinking about the WrestleMania main event. And he's talking to a writer or someone, a creative, or someone, or a wrestler themselves. I mean, people forget that Dave had his stooges, out there. They might be, less and less than he had before, but like known Meltzer stooges, Eddie Gilbert, he was one. I wouldn't be surprised if Cornette was feeding him information.
Yeah.
Paul Heyman, yes, was calling them up, and then he is, he's a long line of sources, and yes, they're going to be anonymous because if they weren't going to be anonymous, they would be fired from their jobs. I don't know why people give him so much shit. It seems weird to me. I think a lot of it has to do with jealousy. He could, he makes money, doing something he loves, writing about something he loves. That's the dream, isn't it? That's the dream of all of us.
Yep.
Any of us that does podcasts or newsletters or websites, we want to be Dave. We want to make money, talking about professional wrestling. The concept's almost ridiculous.
Right.
It's a dream job, and he's been doing it longer than anybody else. So he's been doing it since I guess the first Observer came out maybe late '83, early '84, around that time frame. This is pre Vince expansion era. It's like, oh shit. So it's like, oh. I don't think people should give Uncle Dave, so much grief, especially for like stuff that like his opinion. But,
right.
and a lot of it has to do with Bruce Pritchard's show and Eric Bischoff's podcast because, they talk a lot of shit about him. But this is nothing new for like Dave because people have been talking shit about Dave forever. Like if you go back and watch any of the Shooter interviews from the '90s and early 2000s, they always fucking shit on Dave. Fuck, Hulk Hogan burned a copy of the Observer live on the fucking Halloween Havoc. It was a Halloween Havoc or such. I forget what pay-per-view that was. He fucking observed this, brother. It's funny because Mean Gene's sitting right there, and then Mean Gene's getting all his information for his hotline via the Observer, which is hilarious. And Mean Gene fucking admitted that in the shooting. He was like, yeah, we just go to the Meltzer and Dave Lee's talking about it and put it on fucking the hotline. So, yeah, don't be weird on the internet. As I guess the morals of the story. Just be the normal. Like, ask questions, have normal debates, have opinions that have value. My father always used to tell me, all the time that an uneducated opinion is worthless. It's just you talking shit.
Right.
And it's true. It's like everyone's entitled to their opinion, but if your opinion is garbage, or it's not educated, or you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, it's like shit. It's like, if we're gonna talk about, we're gonna talk about cars, right? I'm gonna talk my opinion on a car. Then you get like my daughter, who's 5 years old, opinion on a car. They're gonna be different. She doesn't have a more educated opinion about automobiles than I do. And it's like, okay. That's what a lot of wrestling fans don't see. Like, well, this is my opinion, and it's like, yeah, but you don't know anything. So why would anyone want to listen to you? And that's why we do these shows. Like I do this show to kind of organize my thoughts, kind of organize my opinions, and put them out there to the world to see if they get validated or not. And one of the coolest things that I've come across is when, I say something on this show, and then 2 weeks later, someone has a similar or same opinion. So if I say something and then Jim Cornette has the same opinion as me, I'm like, oh, wow, it validates my opinion. It's like, oh, I'm not fucking stupid.
Right.
I was like, I know what I'm talking about. Or here's, someone else, Jim Ross, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bruce Pritchard, anybody, any of the podcasters or any of the wrestlers, if they have a similar opinion, it pops up on Twitter. I'm like, oh, that validates my opinion. That's, at the end of the day, I think that's what I'm looking for is to have these thoughts and these ideas and some of this other stuff, and to see if they hold water and they're legitimate and they get validated. Because at my age right now, it's a good possibility that I'll never work for a wrestling company or never get that opportunity. And I like to think I could contribute in that manner if given that opportunity. But You know, I don't think that's going to happen for me, but who knows? But at the very least, I can get my opinions validated. And if you look at comments, especially like YouTube and stuff like that, I'm waiting for like the fucking flood of fucking nasty, gross comments. Well, in the 3 years that we've been doing this show, we haven't gotten any. Like, no one's ever said, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about."
It was me, Austin. It was me.
You know, no one's come out and no one's ever proclaimed that we don't know what we're talking about. It's actually been quite the contrary. It's like, oh, you know, one of the biggest compliments I got is like, oh, you guys are a bunch of Northeast guys that know a lot about Southern wrestling. Like, yeah, we sure do. And to be completely honest, you know, we're not the end all be all because I think I know stuff, and then I listen to someone else's podcast that knows more than me. I'm like, wow, they know so much more than me. You know what I mean? Like, I listen to Between the Sheets, and I'm like, wow, these guys are insane. They know so much more than me. That it's fucking nuts. So I think that's the best podcast out there right now, to be honest. So definitely take a look at that. All right, guys. So we are officially out of time. So